This is the first time in a while that I've done this, and not on a Friday either. We have a twofer double feature album review for, well, Ace Frehley's 10,000 Volts, and I Don't Know How But They Found Me's Gloom Division. Two albums that are completely different and have nothing to do with each other, but they came out on the same day, and I wanted to check them both out, so I thought, why not review them both in one video? I want to start out with Ace Frehley's 10,000 Volts because, well, you know, me being a Kiss fan and Ace Frehley probably being my favorite member, a lot of people's favorite member, his solo career has always been pretty solid, pretty smooth. I mean, he had Frehley's Comet for a while before really hitting it big when he just went solo as Ace Frehley. He hasn't released an album since 2020 up until this point, and 10,000 Volts is kind of a, how do I put this? It's not an up and down adventure, but it's definitely an adventure of some sort where I feel kind of underwhelmed in the end. I mean, there's a couple songs on here that I don't necessarily like. Cherry Medicine, Back Into My Arms, and Constantly Cute are just, well, at least Constantly Cute's a cringy song. The other two, I just don't necessarily feel the vibe of them. But with Constantly Cute, it's this guy who's in his 70s at this point, and he's telling this girl that, you know, you always look cute, but saying constantly cute just doesn't roll off the tongue well. I've never heard anybody say that. So, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm a little weirded out by the sentiment, but like, you know, just not my thing. Then when we get to the okay tracks, Walking on the Moon, Cosmic Heart, and Life of a Stranger, I think a lot of this has to do with the instrumentals being very good, or vice versa, where I feel like, you know, the story that's being told is fine, but nothing more. It's kind of the underwhelming section of the album where, you know, they have the ability to be great songs, but they don't necessarily live up to their full potential. Then we get to my favorites, the title track, which kicks off the album. This was the only song I heard before the album, and I said, this is classic Ace Frehley. Fighting for Life was another one, a story about a guy named Johnny who just kind of, you know, music is his life, but all this stuff keeps happening to him, so he's fighting for his life. Blinded, Up in the Sky, and then Stratosphere is also great. Stratosphere is a nice little instrumental track to end the album that I think shows off Ace Frehley's guitar skills very, very nicely, as I always found him to be an underrated guitarist. No one gives him his props. Sure, he's got his certain set style that he does, but nonetheless, it's very distinctive. You can tell when it's Ace Frehley, and he just does an excellent job here. I think one of the main things about this album, though, is that, and I'm going to say this before I you know, talk about it, I know that when you look at the four original Kiss members, Ace Frehley probably was the worst singer of the four. Gene Simmons probably 3, Peter Criss 2, and Paul Stanley, you know, the best one. But Ace at least, you know, still sounded nice, and I get it, with age your voice is gonna, you know, take its toll a little bit, but I don't know, Ace's voice throughout this record, it felt like he was trying to honk up a loogie every time he was singing, and that was kind of off-putting for a lot of these songs, so there's also that going on for it. All in all, I don't think this album is terrible, but I do think that we're starting to kind of see Ace Frehley get to the point in his career where it's like, yeah, you know, he's definitely showing his age when making this music, and he can still make good music, but at the same point in time, it's starting to become less enjoyable for a lot of different reasons. But a 6 out of 10 is still a pretty solid listen, just not necessarily one I would call my favorite. Now let's get to I Don't Know How But They Found Me's Gloom Division. This is the first time that we are seeing Dallon Weekes go solo with I Don't Know How, as he kicked Ryan Seaman out of the band because apparently he was stealing money from Dallon. I don't know, that's way too complicated, but at this time I Don't Know How is a solo act, it's not a band anymore, and it was very interesting to see what route Dallon would take for the sophomore record, as their first record was Razzmatazz was absolutely great. I thought, you know, they did a very good job kind of showing you what the band was made of. Almost kind of like this 80s infused like synth pop and almost kind of, you know, disco-y at some points. It's a very interesting listen. And now we got Gloom Division here, which I had a lot of fun with this album listening to it. I mean, for the most part, there's only one song that I didn't like, and that's A Letter. It's not an instrumental track, but it features a lot of instruments and mainly the only vocals that you get on there are some guy reading this letter, so it kind of almost acts as like a really long interlude. But I don't know, I feel like with the rest of the album it's just kind of off-putting in a way, because like I said, the instrumental's so good that once you get to the vocals you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, I don't know about this one. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky there, but that was the only one I would say that I would not go back to on this record. Then we have the OK tracks, Kiss and Tell and Sunnyside. They didn't hit as much as the other songs that I really like on the record. Sunnyside also has William Joseph Cook, who does a good job, but for the most part, I think these songs are just kind of like okay in passing, but I'm not gonna sort them out when going back to listen to this record in general. And that leaves the rest as my favorite. Downside is an excellent kickoff. Gloomtown Brats is nice. Infatuation. What Love. And then we have Speak of the Devil, which is spelled like someone just like randomly, typed on a keyboard, just random letters. It literally took me 5 minutes to try to decipher what that was saying, and I wasn't paying attention to the song, and then I realized I had to go back and listen to the song and be like, oh, Speak of the Devil, that's what that means. I was literally trying to sit there and be like, what is this? Is this some sort of like unspoken alien language? Like, I couldn't figure it out, but eventually I did. 6 Feet, Find Me, Satanic Panic, and Idiots of Oz are also some that round out my favorites. Idiots of Oz is a nice little finisher to the album, and it just kind of, again, leaves you wanting more to this sophomore effort from I don't know how. I don't necessarily know if it's better than the debut. It actually might be in the same realm. It's definitely not a sophomore slump. It's just the fact that Dallon Weekes was able to build off what Razzmatazz gave you and then turn it into this. It's nice in a way. It almost kind of sounds like some sort of concept record. I don't think it is, but it sounds like some sort of concept record trying to tell this story all the way through. And I think that's nice for the most part when you get these songs that just feel so cohesive with each other that, when you start listening to them, you can kind of see a story developing in some way. So, because of how much I enjoyed this album, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10, and it's one of my favorites that I've heard so far this year, but I've only listened to 4 albums, so that's definitely not saying a lot right now, but the fact that they're on top, it's pretty cool to see, because I was anticipating this record, and I was not surprised when I enjoyed it wholeheartedly. So that's it for me. You can tell me in the comments below, what did you think of these albums, or if you listened to one but not the other, what did you think of that album in particular? And if you didn't listen to one of these 2 albums but you listened to the other one, you should definitely go listen to, kind of see how you feel yourself about these records. But until then, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.